Welcome to Her Body and Mind podcast. My name is Dr. Sierra Fox.
My name is Amanda Sarich.
And today we're going to be speaking with you guys about iron deficiency. So we're entering into a 3-part series. So this is part 1. So today what we'll be touching on is what is iron deficiency. So there is some confusion around this. We'll be touching on why a lot of women are so confused as to whether they are or aren't iron deficient. We'll go into some common symptoms of iron deficiency. We'll talk about whether or not men should get tested for iron deficiency. And then I do have some labs that we can go over really quickly. So they happen to be mine, hers, and my daughter's. So we'll give you some real world examples of a variety of different iron levels.
Real world. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I said before we were starting to kind of film this episode, I was like, I don't know the answer to a lot of these questions. So I'm excited to learn as well.
Yeah.
So we'll start with, what is iron deficiency?
Yeah. So this is actually quite confusing because I think that when a lot of women go to their doctor and they say, I'm having these symptoms, can we test my iron? What the patient thinks they're getting tested for is not generally what their doctor is testing for. So there's a difference between iron deficiency and then just anemia. So when you go to your doctor, they're actually testing you for anemia, and that's actually just looking at your hemoglobin and your hematocrit. Does hemoglobin ring a bell to you?
I've heard that word. Yeah. It's on my lab.
Okay, there you go. It's on your labs. Yeah. So hemoglobin is a marker, and hematocrit is a marker that's part of something called the CBC. So when they look at your hemoglobin, or even when you go get or you donate blood, that's also what they're looking at. So they're not testing your ferritin, they're looking at hemoglobin. And I would say, generally speaking, your hemoglobin is going to be okay. So you'll leave your doctor's office and they'll say like, reviewing your labs, and they'll say everything's normal, everything's fine, and then you leave confused, being like, "Well, what? Like, why do I feel this way?" Versus iron deficiency is actually testing for your ferritin and your transferritin saturation. So those are the 2 markers that dictate actual iron deficiency. So 2 different things. So language is actually quite important when you're talking to your doctor. Not that you would know, but you want to make sure to be clear and ask, like, are we testing for anemia or iron deficiency? Like, what are we talking about here? Does that kind of make sense?
It
Yeah.
does.
And then as far as like, well, what is the difference between these values? What do they do? So I'll give you a bit of context with that as far as like helping you understand why we need to test the variety
Margaret's
of labs.
Margaret's here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So let's just go over, what is hemoglobin, what is ferritin, and what is transferritin really quickly.
Your dog is under the couch.
Okay. And we're back. We retrieved the ball. Margaret's not going to dig underneath the couch anymore. Oh my God. Okay. So there's this really good analogy that I was taught when I actually took a course on iron when I was learning how to do iron IVs. So actually Dr. Bobby Parmar and Dr. Paul Maximus, they teach a majority of the naturopathic doctors and medical doctors, nurse practitioners in BC, how to perform iron infusions. And so when I took this course, they came up with this really good analogy to describe or help people understand what these different markers are and why it's important to know the difference. So hemoglobin you can view as like a bank teller. So a bank teller only has so much money in their little box in front of them. So think of the money that they have in front of them as your iron or what hemoglobin accounts for. Okay. Versus ferritin is like the safe in the back. So ferritin is like your backup, your stores. And the safe in the back actually has way more than what the teller has in front of them, right? If someone was to rob the bank, you don't want to give them everything. And then transferritin is actually like the truck that transports money around the city. So it's what transports your iron from different areas of the body. So it's a transport molecule. So when we're talking about ferritin, we're measuring like your stores versus hemoglobin is like, here's what you have right now, kind of your quick access. So your body is going to deplete the stores before it's going to deplete the quick access, right? But it doesn't mean you're not symptomatic when the stores are being depleted. It just means that it hasn't quite got to the point where the only money left in the bank is what the teller has in front of them, right? So that's kind of the analogy for the different pieces that we're referring to.
I like it.
Yeah, so not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like definitions, what things are, what we're testing when we're trying to differentiate anemia versus iron deficiency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would be defined as iron deficient? Like, what is iron deficiency?
Are you talking about like the actual definition?
Yeah.
So really it's just the measurement.
That's
Like
the
I
thing.
said, so iron deficiency is your ferritin in your transferritin or your transferritin saturation. So those levels and what those levels are is what defines whether you are or aren't iron deficiency versus when you're measuring anemia, like am I anemic? It's the number. So your level of hemoglobin and your hematocrit, those are the numbers that you're looking at. And then if we're talking about, and actually in episode 2, we're talking about assessment. So that's where I actually get into the numbers.
Okay.
What number quantifies me to actually be? And that's where what the research says and then versus what your doctor will tell you, or even what the reference labs represent are very different.
I see.
And so if we're going into like, well, why are so many women confused, or even men for that matter, confused about are or aren't they? It comes down to definition. So what you're asking to be tested versus what you're being tested and what you thought was tested, those are different often.
Yeah. Okay.
And then reference ranges too. So the reference ranges, when you get your labs back, often they'll say that you're within a normal range.
Yeah.
But reality is that for the ranges, they're so broad that just because you're at the lower end doesn't mean you're not symptomatic. It's just that you haven't crashed and burned to the point where you're like actually in a medical emergency situation.
Okay.
Because usually if you're at the lower end, we're in crisis. Like this
Okay.
is very bad, but things are progressive, as we know.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason why there's a lot of confusion.
Well, I think even just you explained it and I was still confused because it's confusing. And so you had to explain it again. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So you already talked about this, but why is there so much confusion? Like, why can we talk about like that a bit more? Like, why are so many women, myself included, so confused about what this is? Like, is there anything more than what you just said? You said a lot there already.
No. I think those are like the bigger points. And I also do think that there's elements where, you know, once your doctor has said something and they're like, oh, well, you just had a baby, or you're just in this phase of life, you're really stressed. I think that women often are more likely to minimize kind of their experience and they have
She has my sock now.
Yeah. I think that women, I think there's a million excuses as to why we can say that we're tired.
Right.
You know, like my kid woke up in the middle of the night, or I worked all day and then I had to take my kids to sports, and then we had a crappy dinner and then we had to stay up late. And, you know, so I think there's a lot of different things around us where as women, we're like, well, it makes sense that I would be tired because my life is insane and it's so chaotic and busy that when your doctor then says, no, you're fine, then it's almost near impossible for you to think or believe that your iron would be low, which again is part of the next episode that we're going to be talking about is those things. So we're going to talk about the numbers and like without even getting your iron tested, how can we know that maybe there's some hints in our lives that we might be low without even getting that lab test? So that's in part 2 of this series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like everything else, women have so much at them that it's hard to differentiate what is what.
Yeah, totally.
So what are the symptoms of this? So what are some of the like main symptoms of iron deficiency?
Yeah. So I'll kind of read a list of symptoms and then I'll talk about kind of the top 4 reasons why people might come into me because of a particular concern, and iron being part of that diagnostic workup. So I'm just going to reference my list so I don't forget anything. So the most obvious, I think that number 1 would be obviously fatigue. So there's a very certain number as far as like the spectrum of iron levels where you have to be above a ferritin of 50 to really start to see or noticeably see a benefit from an energy perspective. So that's just like throwing a number out there without you guys particularly knowing about the reference ranges. And then there would be insomnia. So insomnia / like restless leg. So whether you're not sleeping deep enough, it's difficulty falling asleep, or you're getting restless leg. Literally, you feel like you're like shaky, you're wanting to twitch. A lot of people think of magnesium deficiency, but iron is up there with magnesium and restless leg. Anxiety, depression, so mental health, that's like huge. I would say very, very big. ADHD, so neurodivergence. Ferritin is required to produce dopamine and serotonin.
Say more.
But well, that is it. We need iron to produce those hormones to help with our attention and focus. And so if you already have this predisposition to ADHD and your iron is low, you're going to feel a lot worse. Your symptoms are going to be worse. So this is very important if you know you have a diagnosis, you need to maximize or optimize these numbers.
I feel like that point alone is so huge. I feel like so many people wouldn't know that. I know a lot about serotonin and ADHD, and like so many people wouldn't know that. And if you could be like optimizing your presentation and like having more,
Yeah. So all my peds or even adults that I know that we're either assessing and screening or treating for those things, iron is a non-negotiable, or ferritin testing. And then iron, if we need to supplement with or find dietary ways to get their levels up, is definitely a huge thing. So that's mental health. Headaches. That happens. Lightheadedness, dizziness, brain fog. Those are all symptoms of low iron for sure. Heart palpitations. So very common. I've had a lot of men actually where their ferritin has been critically low because of underlying like autoimmune conditions like celiac, IBD, and that's a huge symptom, but not just male specific. Reduced libido or reduced enjoyment.
Well,
yes. So that's
an unfortunate symptom.
No one feels like doing it when they're tired.
Terrible.
Nope, not good. Hair loss. So that's like a big issue with iron. So anything below 70, you might start to see that shedding gets worse. So ferritin of 70, shortness of breath. So that's a big one, or even exercise intolerance. So difficulty recovering from exercise can be a thing. Frequent colds and flus. So your immune system, like your red and white blood cells both require iron for support. So if you don't have that, yes, you're going to get sick more frequently. Your infections are going to last for longer. So you're not going to recover as well. So that's another thing. And that was kind of like the big list. And then as far as like the top symptoms, so why people come in to see me for this, I would say that fatigue, mood, cognition, and hair loss. So those are big. Now, with that said, that's a lot of symptoms that cross over with a lot of other conditions. Yeah. And it gets confusing because there are so many considerations. Menopause and perimenopause are a big piece of that. A lot of women come in saying like, I think I'm in perimenopause, and actually they're just iron deficient. Because there's so many crossover symptoms. It's like confusing time. Like, how do you know what is doing what? And so without testing ferritin, you won't know how much of a piece your iron levels are playing in your symptom picture.
And I don't know how people listening feel about that list, but I know I'm like, damn, because I know my number. We won't say it yet, but it's not great. So reading that, like hearing that list, my mind's going like, and I bet people listening is this too. Like so many of those, if those could be better, like I'd like more energy and those things.
I know. I've tried to encourage her to take care of her iron, and yet maybe after this episode, she'll take it more seriously because she'll know how big of an impact it's having on her. I don't
Stay tuned, everyone.
Hard to say.
But that's why this is good, because we're saying it all. Like we talk about it all the time. But
all the time.
You've never read me a list before.
No. Now I've read her the riot act. She can't ignore it.
Okay, so this is good. Okay, so hopefully everyone's as interested as I am in maybe treating some of these symptoms.
Yep.
So let's talk about the men. Should we be testing men for iron deficiency?
Yes. Hard yes. And I mean, like, again, this is like one area where I feel like there's some bias towards females and males in medicine. Like, honestly, like if a man goes in to see their doctor saying that they're tired, like often they're like, it's impossible for a man to have low iron because they don't have a period every month.
Right.
So there's this like kind of blanket thing where you're not losing iron every month. So there's no way that you could be low, but there are instances where this makes sense. And to be fair too, the way that men usually come into their doctor's office when it comes to like low energy, low motivation, they're actually going and being like, something's wrong. I think my testosterone's low. Like most men assume it's just their testosterone. Right. It could be the only thing. I've tested many men's testosterone level, and honestly, I catch iron deficiency more than I do low T. Yeah, and that is for
good to know too, though.
It
like,
is
absolutely.
It is, because I mean, there could be other things going on, but men don't know. Like, oh, I can have low iron, and that can be causing some of my mood issues and my motivation, my, all that. So it is good. But as far as like why would a man be low is either dietary. So they might be a vegan, vegetarian, and we just don't get enough or absorb as much iron out of plant-based foods as we do animal products. Right. So that's just a given. That's well researched. And gut issues. So whether that's just like an IBS like picture, or it could be more severe in being that they might have an autoimmune condition like celiac, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. So I do have several male patients who do unfortunately struggle with these issues, and their iron is low because of it, especially if the autoimmune condition can't be managed properly, where they're constantly in a flare. When your gut is all shredded up, you're not breaking down your food properly and you're not absorbing things properly. And it's like having like a leak. So I always say to a man with like low iron, it's like either we need to fix a leak in your body somewhere, or it's like intake, right? Yeah. There's one of two things, but we've got to like find the hole, plug it up, get to the root cause of why.
Find that hole, plug it up. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. This is so interesting. Okay. So let's drum roll our labs so we can find out, maybe we'll understand why my face is like, when you say above 50 or below 50, you'll see some of these things.
Yeah. Okay. So, I have a few different steps. Actually, so we're going to start with mine actually. So I have my labs, I have Amanda's, and I have my daughter's. So I actually have my blood work from when I was a vegetarian. So I was a vegetarian for 3 years, and it was from 2011 to 2014. And actually after I got this blood work back, I actually started eating meat after that.
Tell us what your first meat was.
Oh God, do you remember what it was?
Yeah.
What was it? I think Autumn brought this up.
It was really gross.
Autumn thought it was a hot dog, I think.
No, it was
chicken club?
Liver. It was liver.
Oh, Autumn was talking about like the bad stuff that I was like excited to eat again, but no. So and the reason was this. So I was working with a naturopathic doctor at the time, and they taught me that liver is the most nutrient dense meat as far as like micronutrients such as iron, B12, all these different things. And so in my labs, not that you guys can see, but here my ferritin is 30. And actually, not that we're talking about B12, but my B12 was 210. And that was sheerly because I wasn't eating meat. Because once I switched my diet, I actually never took an iron supplement to get my levels up. I just switched my diet and my levels went up. And they were fine. Liver. So anyway, I had a 30 and a B12 of 210. And this is me actually kicking off my med school career. Like this is like a few months into it. This is how I was going to go through med school. So thank God I did not.
Such a clear picture of you. The liver, and like you took a picture of it while it was going through the grocery thing, and I eat meat, and I was like, ooh. Quite a reintroduction.
I didn't mind it. It's not as bad as she said. You should try it if you have low iron. Okay, so now we have Autumn's blood work. So I have 2 sets for her as well. And this is just, again, kind of nuance. Hers weren't terrible, but in October 2024, I tested her ferritin. It was 71. And then again, July 2025, and it was 104. So 104 is like perfect, I would say. That's a perfect ferritin.
Autumn's perfect.
Yeah. And again, we didn't supplement her. We just did dietary things. Yeah. So no supplement there. And we'll get into like why that may or may not work for you in episode 3, but it did for her and we knew it would. And then let's get into Amanda's labs.
Here we go, everyone.
Yay.
These are nice numbers.
Yay. So March 2024, her ferritin was 38, looking the best I've ever seen it for Amanda.
That's my best iron. That's my best day. Iron. Here we are.
Her best iron.
That's my best. Whoop.
Yeah. And then 1 year later, actually March 2025, she went down to a 31. So went down 7. And then not long after that, so this is March 2025 to then August, so less than 6 months apart, and she went down to a 22. Why would that be?
I don't know.
You do? What happened between that time where you were like started to feel a certain way in August? And I was like, we should test your ferritin. You got this. I believe in you.
My heavy period?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Perimenopause, baby.
Yeah. And so, I mean, she's always had heavier periods, but they were heavy.
Like I was bleeding through my chair at work. That's fun. You know, when your therapist stands up and there's blood on your chair.
Oh my God.
It's a good day. That's a good day. That's what was happening. That's my life.
Yep. This is real life.
This is real life. Here we are.
Yeah. So anyways, that's episode 1.
There it is.
On iron.
And I think we learned I should get an iron infusion.
Yeah, we'll talk about part 3. We're going to talk about how to treat, and that will be for sure part of it. But yeah, that's a wrap on that. So if you guys have any questions about the content that we did discuss today, or if you like want to share your stories, definitely leave comments below. We'd be happy to listen, and then probably eventually to do some sort of a Q&A on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you next time.
Please contact your own healthcare providers before you make any changes to your health and wellness protocols related to your body and mind.